Okay, we need to have a serious conversation about coffee. Coffee is in a weird and frankly extremely concerning spot right now. You've probably noticed the prices are getting out of control. Maybe at your local cafe, maybe at the grocery store. $10 for a cup, $20 for a bag. It's insane. And yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of that. But here's what most people are missing. This isn't just about inflation. This isn't just about Starbucks. The entire culture of caffeine is shifting. We're witnessing the perfect storm unfold. Climate chaos, economic pressure, automation, and changing consumer habits, all colliding into a full-blown identity crisis for our favorite brown drink. And most people have no idea it's even happening. As a coffee fan, I wanted to dig into all of this, not just for you, but for my own sanity. So let's find out, why are coffee prices skyrocketing? What does this mean for the economy? Why are people willing to pay $10 for a latte? What secret beverage might be killing coffee? And so much more. Let's dive in. The world is obsessed with a brown drink called coffee. Globally, we consume about 2 billion cups of coffee a day. Here in the States, we consume 146 billion cups annually. And me, well, I go through a pot more often than I'd like to admit. My blood type is probably French roast positive. Coffee is more than a drink. It's a match made in heaven with a dessert. It's the perfect excuse for a first date. And of course, it's our socially acceptable way of self-medicating with caffeine. I love coffee so much, I'm drinking it while I'm writing the script of this video. But on top of that, for me, coffee makes me think of family. My grandparents would brew a pot during game nights, right as someone was setting up the Scrabble board. Birthdays, reunions, Sunday night football, coffee was always there, usually next to a half-eaten cake. I mean, think about it. Coffee is one of the only drinks in the world that has inspired t-shirts, songs, home decor, and even entire personalities. I don't need to sell you on coffee. You probably already get it. But what you might not know is how impactful this simple brown drink really is. During World War II, soldiers were issued instant coffee in their rations to help them stay alert on the battlefield. Caffeine was war ready, and when those soldiers came home, they brought back the habit with them. And by 1946, coffee accounted for nearly 10% of all US imports. Today, the coffee industry supports over 2.2 million jobs in the US alone, from baristas to roasters to importers, truck drivers, and cafe owners. That's actually more than the entire US auto manufacturing workforce. In fact, coffee represents about 1.3% of the American economy. Globally, it's no different. Worldwide, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, making coffee one of the most valuable agricultural exports in the world. For many developing countries, especially in Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia, it's not just a cash crop, it's the crop. Entire economies are built around coffee exports, and worldwide, millions of farmers rely on it, not just for income, but for survival. So yeah, coffee is important, probably more important than you may think. But what if I told you that there's trouble brewing, that coffee might be entering its flop era? Or should I say, froth era? You're not crazy if you think coffee has gotten more expensive. The average cost of a cup at a cafe jumped 40% in just a year. And if you brew at home, the US average for a single pound of ground coffee just hit $9.14. That's not some fancy pants single origin bag, that's the average. J.M. Smucker, for example, the parent company behind brands like Folgers and Café Bustelo, announced in August on an earnings call that they're raising coffee prices for a third time this year, citing rising commodity costs and tariffs. Another indicator, the price of Coffee C futures. Coffee C represents the expected price of Arabica coffee beans, the most popular type of coffee bean in the world. These futures are contracts used by roasters and importers to lock in bean prices months in advance, and the price has absolutely skyrocketed. As you can see, Coffee C has more than doubled since 2023. That's right, doubled. Now, sure, it's normal for the price of consumer goods to rise over time. We've done this dance and seen this rodeo before. Nearly everything eventually gets more expensive, but usually those increases are gradual, not this drastic. And if you want to understand just how bad it's gotten, look no further than Starbucks. Starbucks, already notorious for its pricey drinks, has also increased the cost of most of their items across the board, and it's projected to get worse. To help offset rising coffee costs, they've started squeezing customers in more subtle ways. As of June, for example, they introduced a flat fee of 80 cents for any syrups or sauces added to drinks that don't already include them. So it doesn't matter how many pumps or flavors orders you add, you're getting charged 80 cents every time. They also quietly nerfed their free refill policy. You can still get a refill technically, but if you had any customizations, for example, a splash of almond milk or hazelnut flavoring, you'll be charged for them again, which means you could still get refills, but it's not really free anymore. And this is all under leadership of their new CEO, Brian Niccol. Wait, why does this guy look and sound so familiar? Oh, that's right. This is the guy from Chipotle. It's the guy who oversaw price hikes and famously didn't admit the company was cutting portion sizes until the internet forced him to. You literally cannot make this up. This fella is now running Starbucks, and surprise, the prices are going up. But here's the thing, this isn't just a case of corporate greed, though that's definitely part of it. The thing is, the small guys are raising prices too. Whether you're buying from a multinational chain or just a small corner cafe, coffee is getting more expensive in an unusual way. And that's where things get complicated. But first, frequent viewers of my channel know I love supporting local and or small businesses. I don't know about you, but a cup of coffee from a smaller scale roaster to me just tastes better than the bigger chains. Yeah, I said it. So for this video, I wanted to partner up with someone who highlighted small business roasters, not hurt them. So I did just that. Today's sponsor is Trade Coffee. Here's how it works. Trade is a specialty coffee company that pairs you with some of the best small batch roasters from around the country. They match you with coffee based on your taste preferences, whether you like light roast, dark roast, espresso, cold brew, or just want to try something new. So far, I've tried a few different blends and enjoyed each one. This one's from Floyd, Virginia. This one's from Austin, Texas, and this one's from Seattle, and as you can see, I've pretty much demolished the whole bag. But the best part, it's affordable. Trade's prices are comparable to what you'd pay at a grocery store, but the quality is miles better, and every bag you buy supports an actual small business, not just some mega giant coffee chain. Right now, they're offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/Zackary. That's drinktrade.com/Zackary. Please check them out. I promise you'll really love the coffee. Okay, now back to the video. So coffee is undoubtedly getting more expensive, but why? And why are people still willing to pay for it even as prices climb? Let's start with that first question. Why is coffee getting more expensive? Well, the truth is there isn't really one particular reason. The reality is a lot messier. There are multiple forces causing this. This isn't a single issue story, it's a domino effect. And to understand, we have to take it piece by piece. Coffee is one of the most labor-intensive beverages you can buy. From the farmers and processors to the roasters, truckers, baristas, and shift managers. It takes a village to get the oat milk latte in your hand. And that village, well, it's going through a lot right now. Let's circle back to Starbucks. Since 2021, thousands of Starbucks baristas have been unionizing, asking for fair wages and predictable schedules. So how did Starbucks respond? Legal battles, store closures, and something way more dystopian. Starbucks' current CEO, Brian Niccol, thinks the answer to all of this is AI baristas. At a recent Dreamforce conference, Niccol said Starbucks is working on, quote, mind-reading AI. That's their grand plan. Starbucks is spending hundreds of millions to automate the front lines. In fact, it's been reported they've already spent over $200 million on AI tools. We've talked in detail on this channel about how fast food companies are throwing millions into food tech, marketing, apps, and automation, and Starbucks is no different. Since 2019, Starbucks has been building a proprietary platform called Deep Brew. Deep Brew uses AI to personalize digital orders, optimize labor schedules, and manage inventory by predicting customer demand. Then in June 2025, they rolled out Green Dot Assist, an AI assistant for baristas accessed through in-store iPads. It helps employees remember recipes, troubleshoot machines, and assist customers. When Today.com reached out for a comment this fall about all these changes, a Starbucks spokesperson said the AI is meant to, quote, make jobs easier, not replace them. But according to a 2025 survey of Starbucks union workers, 93% said Brian Niccol's new policies have either done nothing or made the customer experience worse. So it's clearly not about making jobs easier. On paper, they say it's about supporting workers. In practice, it's about supporting those workers right out the door. Because here's the truth. Labor is one of the few expenses that big coffee chains can still control. What they can't control, well, we'll get into that in a minute. The point is, between the ongoing wage debate and the millions these chains are spending on AI, apps, and automation, labor is obviously part of why prices are going up. But let's be honest, your local coffee shop isn't writing checks to predictive analytics firms or building proprietary AI platforms. There's something significantly larger going on, something a bit more complex. Let's have a conversation about a topic I hope we can all have a constructive conversation about. Tariffs. Okay, unless you've been living under a rock, you know tariffs are all the rage nowadays, which is weird because I don't remember anyone asking for them. A tariff, if you didn't know, is a tax on imported goods. Governments use them to try and protect domestic industries by making foreign products more expensive. The logic goes, if imports cost more, people will buy locally instead. In theory, it's meant to boost national production and support local businesses. And in some cases, tariffs can work. But when it comes to coffee, it's a mess. In August 2025, the US placed a 50% tariff on Brazilian coffee, along with additional tariffs on other coffee-producing countries. Politicians claimed it would boost domestic coffee production, which sounds nice, except for one tiny detail. America doesn't really grow coffee. The only US state that produces it is Hawaii, specifically Kona. And while Kona coffee is excellent, it's also limited and already expensive, like $30 a pound expensive. Kona coffee makes up less than 1% of US coffee consumption. The rest is imported from other countries. The idea that Kona could somehow supply the entire US is a fantasy. Coffee farming requires specific conditions, elevation, rainfall, shade, and a stable climate. And while Hawaii has that in certain microclimates, the land is limited, and so is the labor. Kona coffee is grown on small, often family-run farms. Real life isn't like the video game SimCity or Roller Coaster Tycoon. You can't bulldoze a farmer's market to build a 5x5 grid of coffee trees and call it a day. That's not how agriculture or Hawaii works. On top of that, labor costs in Hawaii are dramatically higher than in countries like Brazil or Vietnam. So even if Kona could grow enough coffee beans for everyone in the US, which it can't, the price of that coffee would be completely out of reach for the average American. So what we're left with is a tariff that doesn't protect domestic industry because that industry barely exists. Instead, it just makes the imported coffee, the stuff that 99% of us drink, more expensive. The policy is so weird that a bipartisan group in Congress is actively trying to repeal it, calling it a blanket tariff that makes no economic sense. You know you messed up when Congress comes together to call your idea nonsensical. But as it stands, the tariff is still there, and that cost, well, it travels all the way down the supply chain until it shows up on your receipt. But like I said, this isn't a single issue story or even a double issue story. It's more like a triple shot of economic chaos. Coffee is a crop, a very picky, very climate sensitive crop, and most of the world's supply comes from a narrow stretch of land near the equator, known as the Bean Belt. Think Brazil, Colombia, Vietnam, and Ethiopia. This region has the elevation, rainfall, and stable temperatures coffee needs to thrive. But those ideal conditions, they're becoming a lot less reliable. Let's start with Vietnam, the world's largest producer of Robusta beans, the type commonly used in instant coffee. In recent years, Vietnam has been hit with intense droughts and delayed harvests, pushing farmers absolutely to the edge. According to the country's Coffee and Cocoa Association, the 2023 to 2024 harvest was down 20%, with another significant drop projected for 2024 to 2025. Then there's Colombia, a major producer of specialty grade Arabica beans. The problem there isn't drought, it's the opposite. Excessive rain and high temperatures are disrupting the flowering cycle of coffee plants, which directly impacts yield and quality. Colombia's National Coffee Federation is forecasting a decline in production for the 2025 to 2026 cycle, blaming these increasingly erratic conditions. Then there's Brazil, the giant. The country supplies nearly 40% of the world's coffee, and its weather patterns basically set the tone for the entire global market. But Brazil's been in the middle of a climate whiplash, a multi-year drought followed by episodes of frost, and now excessive rainfall and heat. The result? Production for the 2025 and 2026 season is forecast to drop significantly. Some farms are reporting widespread defoliation, and experts are already warning that the 2026 crop may be compromised too. So we have three of the largest coffee suppliers in the world struggling hardcore, all because of climate-related issues. And when we zoom out and factor everything we've talked about, tariffs, climate instability, rising labor costs, it's honestly no surprise the world's most favorite drink is getting more more expensive. And if this was your standard 5 o'clock news segment, we'd probably wrap things up here. But this is only half the story. Coffee is not just dealing with price fluctuations. The industry is transforming in less obvious ways. Let's rewind for a second. Remember when I mentioned how World War II soldiers brought back their instant coffee habit? Well, it didn't take long for employers to realize something. Caffeine makes you work faster and more efficiently. So employers started offering free coffee in the workplace, not out of kindness, but because it increased productivity. As journalist Michael Pollan put it, capitalism and caffeine go hand in hand. It's like a toxic relationship, but with better branding. That relationship hasn't gone away. In fact, it's evolved into something more intense: the rise of energy drinks. Energy drinks are caffeinated, uber portable, aggressively branded, and often cheaper than a fancy coffee. And now energy drinks are the fastest growing segment in the beverage industry. This is not a coincidence. The US energy drink market has been booming, and globally it's projected to grow at around 8% annually through 2030. That's not a blip, that's a seismic shift. More and more young people are skipping a morning brew and cracking a neon-colored can instead. Brands like Celsius, Prime, and Ghost aren't just selling caffeine, they're selling a lifestyle. Gamer culture, gym culture, hustle culture. Who knew crypto bros, gym rats, and gamers could find common ground in reasonably priced caffeine? And as a result, energy drinks are siphoning off a big chunk of the coffee crowd: the utilitarians. Let me explain. There are two main types of coffee drinkers. The utilitarians, these are your gas station regulars. They want caffeine fast and cheap. They don't care if it's from beans or Bang Energy. Then you have the identity drinkers. These are your matcha flight samplers, cafe scene loyalists. They take pride in the vibe. For them, coffee isn't just functional, it's aesthetic, it's the whole thing. And this divide is reshaping the market. The utilitarians are drifting more towards energy drinks and budget options. Meanwhile, identity drinkers are leaning deeper into quality. The rise of espresso supports this thesis. Like the global energy drink market, espresso is experiencing strong growth, and globally it's projected to grow 4.5% annually through 2034. Espresso consumption is on the rise not because it's stronger than coffee, but because it feels elevated. It's the centerpiece of latte art, tasting menus, and specialty brews. Additionally, over the last few years, home espresso machines are getting better and more accessible, which leads me to one of my profound conclusions. Even though coffee is getting more expensive, it might not matter. Because for many people, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a luxury. Coffee is the hill many people are willing to collectively die on. This could attribute to why places like Starbucks are dealing with so many issues. The chain is reportedly closing stores and laying off a wave of workers. Their overall revenue is technically up, but their US comparable store sales are actually down 2%. And here's the killer detail: that's being driven by a 4% drop in transactions. People are literally walking in the door less. It's like Chipotle all over again. You can squeeze customers to boost your revenue, but at some point, many customers are just gonna stop showing up. Starbucks finds itself in a weird middle ground. It's not affordable enough to compete with McDonald's, gas station coffee, or energy drinks, and it's not artisanal enough to compete with indie cafes that have no problem charging a premium for espresso, because for those people, it's an experience, it's a luxury. The whole thing is a bit ironic because personally, I feel like Starbucks helped invent that whole cafe dweller remote worker vibe, but like with everything hipsters hate, it became too popular. It became too commercialized. So now Starbucks isn't cool anymore. Pounding an energy drink or supporting a local coffee shop is. So where does that leave us? Well, if you're like me, you probably don't fit into either category. You're not a utilitarian and you're not an identity drinker. You're just an average Joe who wants a reasonably priced, delicious cup of coffee. But the thing is, that doesn't matter. Something I learned really fast in business school is that companies love market segmentation. Like, they're obsessed with it. Everyone needs to be given a buyer persona and shoved into a category. I'm dead serious. If you've never heard of market segmentation, it's exactly what it sounds like. Some hotshot from the marketing department comes into a boardroom and starts dividing customers into personality types, complete with names, lifestyles, income levels, Instagram habits. Every single brand you know has done this to you, and coffee is no different, which kind of explains why sometimes it feels like brands are making decisions for a few specific groups, while the rest of us, the middle ground, just get left behind. And then on another level, I think this whole discussion on coffee is another reminder that we live in an incredibly fragile world. Coffee, something many people take for granted, is facing more challenges and becoming less accessible. And it makes you wonder, Where is the line? Like, how much is too much? Seriously, what is the most you'd be willing to spend on a bag of coffee? Let's say tomorrow you walked into the grocery store and the cheapest bag was $25, $30, or even $50. At what point would it be too expensive that you stopped drinking coffee? For me, I don't know. I'm a sucker for coffee, especially this time of year. It just reminds me of board games, cake, and my favorite sports teams disappointing me. But if a bag of coffee gets to $30, I think I might look for something else to scratch that itch. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video, and of course, a special thanks to my Patreon supporters. You are all the best. Until next time, bye-bye.